Welcome to the Glow Up Fabulous Conversations with Innovative Mind. Today I'm talking with Amir Baradaran of Niloom. Amir, it's so good to see you again.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh my goodness, I can't wait. I'm so eager to hear what you've been up to since the last time we talked. Can you introduce me and the listeners to the work that you're doing at Niloom AI? And we'll use that to sort of tease out a little bit of the innovation journey that's actually.
Petra Almodovar once said famously that earliest people who created or played with movies were all magicians. And I really love this because for me, film as motion picture really defined so much of the last century's way in which we tell stories about ourselves, right? Way in which we understand even our sense of self, like who are we? How do we tell stories? How do we understand the other through the story as well? And I think as we are moving from 2D pixels towards 3D polygons, I think we are hitting another moment where the magic of creativity is at work again. And we need some amazing creators to be able to come on board and be part of the ecosystem. That's so much of need of the creative community. And unfortunately, from my own experience, which I will get into later, but I think creating XR content right now almost feels like trying to get in a very exclusive VIP club where the doorman are the engineers who will never let the creative people in. So,
That's
with that preface, to create content right now, you need to have quite extensive knowledge of the main engines, whether it's Unity or Unreal. Unity takes 3 to 6 months to learn. And then you need to learn C Sharp, which takes another 3 to 6 months. So a year later, you're just a rookie starting to create a project. If you have learned how to code, you need another 3 to 6 months to create a project if you were to know how to code and how to build within Unity. We are relying on a very scarce community of engineers right now. If you look at some of the numbers, I think Unity has about 5 million users, right? It covers what, 70, 80% of all AR, VR projects that are done in the world, right? From this 5 million creators that exist on Unity as users, there's only 230,000 people who have created the entirety of all AR, VR projects. How crazy is that?
And this isn't a dig on Unity users, but to the elite nature of what shipping a project really means. Yeah.
It's basically too technical, too expensive because you rely on very scarce engineers, expensive engineers as well. And so too technical, too timely, and too much money that you need to spend. So therefore, it becomes like this almost like the barriers to entry for the creative community who doesn't know how to code is very, very hard and very high. And that's what I say. It feels like an exclusive VIP club, right? So what we are doing is through our generative AI powered basically platform, we are a no code solution that tries to bring in the creative community and make them be part of this XR party revolution that that I've been privileged enough to be a part of, and I think you have been too. So this is what we're doing: a content creation platform that's no code, that's catering to the creative community, so that they would be able to contribute to the creation of projects and quality projects as well. I feel like if you look at Vision Pro has been a bit of a flop, right? Like there's not enough content on it for people to buy, right? And despite the fact that it's a phenomenal device, why would you pay $5,000 if you cannot do a lot of stuff on it? And these are precisely too expensive, too time consuming, and too technical. And this is the problem we are trying to solve. And the goal is through this process to say that if we bring in the creative community who are trained as storytellers to tell proper stories, could it be that we could improve the shortage of quality content that exists within the ecosystem? Could it, by extension, also kind of impact mass adoption and mainstreaming of these devices as well?
Okay, I have a bone to pick, but here's my bone to pick.
Give it to it.
I think you're thinking way too small on that. Argue that creators are the 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 keystone to the beginnings of mass adoption for the entire industry, and that the entire industry is stuck behind this problem. Even if I make a silicon chip that goes into a head mounted heads up AR device,
Mm.
I still need software. I still need programs. Those programs need user interfaces. Those programs need content. That content needs a story, right? The entire industry is really built on this creator layer, and the stories that we are able to tell is the only limit that this media has.
Mhm.
And to get there, we need more artists and creatives. This is your future, but this is a topic that I am incredibly passionate about.
I love that. Listen, I'm all for the role of creators, and I think this is exactly what we need. We need to empower creators to be part of the ecosystem, and they're left out. They're sidelined. When I was teaching at Columbia University, I was inside the School of Engineering at some point. I was the only non-engineer teaching grad level classes because there were not that many people knowing what I know. So that's why I guess they chose me. But at the same time, I remember that the dean of the School of the Arts, who's a friend, she came to our lab once. And this was a lab that has existed since 1984, I think. It's with Professor Stephen Feiner, that you probably know. So before even the word augmented reality was coined, right? It was a computer graphics interface lab, which carries its name since the last 40 years or so. So when the dean of the School of the Arts came, she was like, Amir, I've been the dean for the last, I don't know, at that time, a few decades, I think, a couple of decades. And she was like, this is the first time I'm setting foot inside the School of Engineering. Right. And I think this is so telling in terms of the rift that exists between our engineering department at the education level and our art schools. But there's good news there, because if coding was a prerequisite for so much of what we're doing within engineering and computer science, I think the future of coding is prompting, is coding in plain English language. What better language than that? What more sophisticated language than that, right? Compared to like some of the computer programs that we have, let's say, computer languages that we have. Let's put it this way. Yes, go
Okay,
ahead.
wait, you're foreshadowing something here. I want to just get right to it. So you set up this idea that like it's too hard to create for spatial experiences for 3D content, that we need to give people easy, low barriers to being a part, and that we could really impact the industry. Tell me where this is going.
Well, it's going to this place that initially when we created Niloom, the idea was that we wanted to create a very sophisticated no code solution that would be drag and drop, right? That would allow creators to make sophisticated content. And I'll explain what sophisticated content means for me. But as transformers came to exist and kind of literally transformed so much of our lived experiences and our lives, it was very clear to me that we needed to integrate generative AI for two reasons. One, the future of coding is prompting, and the future of prompting is the new drag and drop. That's
Mm-hmm.
as simple as that. So you can't have a no code without integrating Gen AI.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is a new standard that I think you just described, right? Like the new no code has to be AI driven. Give me a number.
Generative AI has been so significantly impacting every aspect of content creation, from sound to images to text, right? To 3D models and so on and so forth. So it's almost impossible for me to create a platform that I call content creation platform for XR if we do not incorporate the latest and the best of what exists and is impacting the ecosystem of content creation altogether. So because of these two reasons, I think it was a very important kind of decision we made in order to really make sure that we integrate generative AI in every aspect of the content creation workflow, from ideation to editing, to prototyping, to publishing. And we have a motto that's stream it, generate it, publish it, and monetize it. So this is really what we want to give our content creators.
That's a pretty big dream. I'm very excited. Is there like a siren potentially in the background?
Yeah.
Oh, Nathan, I live in New York.
Uh,
Nathan ADHD break.
I'll
So
join you
I
on
was
that
like,
ADHD break.
okay, so the promise of the best features and the latest technologies integrated at every level is really enticing. If I'm a creator who's just getting started making XR experiences, might that be like in the Niloom platform? How would that feel? What would I be doing? Could you give me a little tactical version of this vision? Okay,
So
I guess
yeah.
there are magical storytelling ability.
So
Okay.
that's basically telling a story. You're like, hey, I would like my female character or non-binary character move from left towards right while a dog walks from the end of the thing towards her. And then the dog starts yapping while the woman says, hi, Nathan, why don't we go for a dance? And then she starts dancing. By the way, add some jazz music while she's dancing for 10 seconds, right? There's so much more you can do. But all the extra stuff that you can do is that you can keep adding on them. So there's one, the story as a timeline, sequential series of things that come together that we understand. Or you can add generative AI for all the different components that go into the scene. So for example, let's say you forgot to say, I want to have music. You add specifically sound and you're like, hey, I want to generate a music that is like symphony like, or it's a jazz acid like, or whatever you want. And you immediately generate it and you add it to the scene. Or you're like, hey, we didn't add any props to the scene, right? And you're like, hey, I would like to have I don't know, an old school London like red kiosk, telephone kiosk, for example, right? Like whatever that you want to create. So we provide you with the capacity of adding different types of assets. So assets could be 3D models, 3D characters, could be animals, could be sound. Sound could be music or sound effects. So like moving, tapping, all of these things are sound effects. You could have visual effects, could control the lighting. You could add skybox in case you want it, because we can allow you to, basically within one click, you can publish in AR or VR, and you can publish on iPhones or on Vision Pro or on MetaQuest, all of this within a click, basically. So if you choose to have your project live in VR, then you can generate the sky dome. So a 360 kind of environment that lives as your overall sky inside which your characters are moving. Can do that. Then you can also generate just plain photo, video, and other stuff. So you can build a story based on its individual components that you keep adding to the timeline.
I love it. Oh my gosh. My brain is awash with like, oh, what would prompting this be like? And like, how are you paying for those credits? And where do you put system messages and brand, like, how do you deal with brand voice? But like, oh my gosh, we don't have any time to get into the deeper AI of it. So I'm just going to have to sort of pull back with this expansive vision for, right? Like, we've talked about this vision and kind of like where you're taking Niloom through the technology, through the workflows. I'm I'm curious to know, how do you measure the impact of a tool like Niloom and making creators more powerful or making their days easier? Like, how do you think about the impact of your work and how you measure success?
That's a really good question. To be honest, I feel like every new creator that we add to the ecosystem is a major win for us, right? That's the biggest measure of success for us. To have creators come to us and say, wait a second, so I don't need to go into 10 different softwares to create special different things. And then even if I were to do that, you mean I don't need an engineer to actually build an app for me and everything is made within a click available to me? When I hear these kind of things, for me, these are moments where it becomes exciting. And we talked about filmmaking and the power of the magic of films and storytelling in that medium. But I think we are so far away from understanding the full potential of storytelling for spatial computing, augmented reality, extended reality, virtual reality, because it's interactive, because the fourth wall is often broken, right? So there's responsiveness, there's co-creation that happens with the users. And all of these things, while it is true that we can transfer the knowledge that we have from 2D film, motion picture understanding of storytelling, but there's so much more we need to build around it, right? The simplest example is like when we were making paintings on the wall or doodles, that was one type of storytelling, right? And then when we learned to do pigmentation and fabric creation and like canvas and like be able to have actual painting, that was another thing. When photography came about, that was another set of storytelling. When motion picture came about, that said, hey, put that photograph, full frame of it or whatever number you would like within a frame, and within a second run it, and that gives you the illusion of reality, right? There was a whole series of new magicians that were created around this to say, how do we tell stories? And this is the type of empowerment that we have given ourselves as goal to achieve, is to facilitate, to take away so much of the barriers to entry to this level, so that we can say to all of our creative community that, hey, come on board and play with this new medium, because it's definitely magic and it's time to do some magic together.
Yeah, the idea that not only do you have more tools of expression and the depth of engagement, a depth of interaction that we've seen with each different and successive medium. Often it's not until we've been in a tool for a while that we even start to know all of the impacts and all of the characteristics of that medium. I love this idea of you have to make it easy so that our translators, these folks who understand how to tell stories, who understand how to reach people and connect with the current moment, make a creative's life as easy as possible because they know how to solve some of the hard problems that are on everybody else's mind. So I love this, just giving so many more layers and tools. So Niloom is relatively young. How have you used, or how have you connected with creators and your target audience to build and validate and understand the value of these ideas and tools?
So we are constantly learning. I feel like, and we are constantly learning from audience in a way. Think of us as the glam squad that constantly adds to the makeup kit, that kind of thing. So we add to the features as we go on to really respond to the needs of what is considered to be necessary for them to tell the stories they want to tell. But having said that, we are pre-seed right now. We are just about to add a payment plan because up to now has been for free. So we're just about to add a payment plan with the token system that we're adding, just regular token system, not blockchain, to allow for extra features for people to be able to build more stuff together with it. So yeah, how we're building is, for us, it has been very small number of people that we have been allowing to, because there's a big wait list right now. In all honesty, for us, it was what we did throughout the end of the summer. And right now it's like small number of people we bring in. We have direct communication to understand how are they using it? What is it that they're using? So that when we open it up to everyone, we would be closer to what the platform should look like.
Perfect. I love it. One of the things that I hear XR creators talk about a lot is workflows, documentation, understanding how tools work. Like, hey, how did you get that thing? Like, I have a very specific idea, a very specific input. Like, how do I get it? And sometimes just the details of how do you make this work? I know this tool should be able to do it or can be all that it takes to really unlock an idea or a capability for an artist. And product teams are often so close to the tools, to the ideas, to how the workflows should have been imagined to work, that having that back and forth has got to be just incredibly valuable because creators are so specific in some ways. The show is called The Glow Up, right? Which is a notable transformation, a rebirth, a reawakening. And early in your journey, maybe let's just think about this as 6 month goals. So, what is the glow up that you're hoping to see for Niloom in the next 6 months? And yeah, what are you working on there?
I think our biggest thing would be really to get to a point where we wouldn't need to have wait list and we can just open it up to everyone, right? So that's the biggest goal for us. And for that to happen, then we're adding the payment system. I think fundraising is part of that too. The other things that's really key is I feel like partnership with some hardware manufacturers could be a really good option as well. So imagine if a hardware, we are already plugging into Vision Pro, right? So think of us as like there's a content creation platform and there's a content distribution. So content distribution can be, is a basically a mobile app on mobile phones, Android and iPhone, and also an app on Vision Pro as well as an app on MetaQuest. So when you're publishing your project, you can literally click and say, I want to put for the project we published in here, in here, and here. I think if we can add more of the existing hardware companies that exist out there or make some partnerships with them to be able to make it easier for their, when a user buys a piece, even if it's for anywhere from like 300 to 3,000, $4,000, if you add a subscription that comes with the headpiece for a year, just imagine the number of content that could be generated by the very people who are users, but they become creators as well. So for me, that becomes really key. And last but not least, we have had a program with some schools. My goal is my wildest dreams to have it always available for free for all schools. And we have worked with some schools already. We've worked with like Concordia, we have worked with UCLA, we have worked with a bunch of schools, some schools in France as well. And then last but not least is that I want to set up an artist residency program because the way I got into this was that 15 years ago, a little bit more maybe. You remember Metayo, probably one of the best AR companies of the time. They had this artist residency program. So as part of their R&D, they would let, we were a few artists back then. I was very privileged to have access to their army of engineers that would really push us to do crazy projects. And th- thanks to them, I was able to do big projects in the Louvre, British Museum. We did the opening of Art Basel, Armory Show. This is like 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, quite a long time ago. And unfortunately, a few years ago, they were acquired by Apple, hence the AR kit. I think that's the same pattern as them at the beginning. It's the same core team, but obviously they've grown enormously. But that process of having access to an automotive engineer or a toolkit that allowed me to express myself and having visionaries of that time to believe in me, like to take me under their wing, whether it was Orion Bug or Stephen Feiner or many other OGs of the time. It was really helpful. So our goal is to create a artist residency program where we would be able to really let some of these amazing creators, creative community to also flourish the same way I had the privilege of doing that.
Oh, I love it. You went ahead and answered the sort of longer term question as well. And it's so perfect. The creators that I talk to, when I've asked about how did you get started? What was your direction? Almost always there was a platform that trusted them, saw their work, saw their vision, and knew that if they could get them into tools, if they could give them the powers to explore these new dimensions, that like they would break open barriers. It's just so lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel there's so much power in that process of co-creation that takes place between the creative minds and our engineers and the product people. And I feel like these are priceless moments for everyone.
So, Amir, one of the things that I like to make space for, right? You mentioned a number of different goals, a number of different initiatives, folks you're looking to connect with. Is there something that you're looking for right now to help you make that next breakthrough in Niloom's journey? Is it network? Is it mentors? Is it folks for the waitlist? Who are you looking to connect with these days?
Yeah, absolutely. If your listeners to Glow Up and you would like to be part of Niloom, we'll give you a code, maybe Glow Up as a code. How's that? To get them ahead of the wait list for others. And yeah, and in terms of other things, so we always are in the lookout for interns as well. So we work with having being coming from an academic background, I feel like it's important to train the next generation of our storytellers. So internship is really important for me. If you're an artist, feel free to reach out to us. And if you're a VC, reach out to us.
Amazing. That's got to feel like a fantastic milestone. Amazing. One of the things that we do make space for as well is the opportunity to give a community spotlight, a
Mm.
shout out to a group, a nonprofit, community work that you think should get a little extra attention. Did you have a shout out or a spotlight that you wanted to share?
The XR Guild, quite important job they're doing. I think thinking about policy, advocacy altogether, but also ethics of coming up with some kinds of norms and kind of framework, ethical framework based on which we could be pursuing XR is monumental, is so key and so important. Same thing with Tom Furness's Virtual World Society, right? Like I feel like he being the grandfather of our in so many ways has contributed, but I think his latest contribution is also a very good one where he brings together this kind of aggregates this community to discuss ethics of utilization of AR, VR, AI, and all of these things and the intersection of these technologies, how it impacts our sense of humanity altogether. And then obviously the usual, there's some great LGBT tech start out. Like there's some amazing, more queer community driven organizations that I always have an eye on. So yeah.
Amazing. Our first ever quadruple spotlight. I love it. Share the love. And also another first in the Glow Up history, a VIP list, a VIP code to get you ahead of the wait list in Niloom.ai. So Amir, we're going to hold you to that one.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much. It has been so wonderful to check back in on this mission that you have around supporting creatives, making barriers to being a part of this magic new medium of storytelling and connection. And honestly, ideally, moving the needle for adoption on the whole dang industry of spatial computing while you're at it. It's been so inspiring and refreshing to check back in. Great to have you.
Thank you. Just before I leave, I would love
Yeah,
to
yeah.
say two things. One is there's a beautiful quote by Maya Angelou that says, you cannot use up creativity. The more you use it, the more you have, right? So I think this is very important for me, at least as a guideline towards where we are going. Also, in some ways, it builds into the next point I wanted to say. And it was really to say thank you for you who has worked so diligently in the last few years to queer up the XR ecosystem in the largest sense of queering up, right? And I think if it wasn't for you, the kind of spaces that have been created, the kind of spaces that you have been holding for a lot of people, such as myself, has been quite dear to me. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. So thank you for queering the XR ecosystem.
Thank you, Amir. That's very sweet. I can only leave it there. It's been so great to connect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.